Okay, there we go. All right, so good morning again. Thank y'all for doing a little AV audio test with us. We greatly appreciate that. So let's see, I'm seeing we do have some audio issues in the chat. So Roxana, it's saying your volume is a little lower. So we'll work on figuring that out. Roxana's on a headset, so we might just have to adjust the volume with that a little bit. So I'm going to slowly start us off. Again, my name is Kristen Howe, and I'm one of the grants managers here with the Human Trafficking Commission. And I just want to recognize and say hello to a lot of my friends out there. I've been staring at your names and your email addresses for 2 months now. And not only am I very excited to see you in general, but I'm excited to see the projects that you're going to create. So I look forward to seeing you in person. So we are here today. As you all know, the Human Trafficking Commission has received a pool of funding, and we're here today to talk specifically about Section 1623, the Economic Assistance Funds for organizations that provide services to victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. So just a couple of housekeeping things. So y'all as attendees will be muted the entire time. We're going to ask that questions that you have, please use the chat function. Our colleague Lauren, who we'll introduce in a second when we talk about the staff here at the Commission, our colleague Lauren will be monitoring the chat. And so how we're going to handle the question and answers is, since this webinar is being recorded and it'll then be posted on our website later today, we're going to go through all of the content. It will probably be about a half hour, 40 minutes or so, and then we'll stop the recording and then we'll go through the chat and answer the question and answers. We did not want our discussion around the question and answers to be recorded and then posted. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. If there's things along the lines of, we can't hear your volume, or can you repeat what you just said? Lauren will certainly relay that to us. But in terms of the other questions, we'll wait till the end. The other thing is, in full transparency, y'all, I thought I was rather impressed with myself, and I thought that I had uploaded the slides to the software before the webinar started. That appears to not be working, so I do apologize about that. And about 15 minutes after the webinar is over, I will be at my desk and I will email them all to you, so you'll have a copy of them. Okay, can you hit next slide, Roxana? So just a little bit about who we are, who the commission is. Again, my name is Kristen Howe. I'm one of the grants manager. And again, I know lots of you folks from my time at NC CASA, and I'm very excited to be working with you again. Roxana, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Roxana Salada Lewis. I'm one of the grants managers here at the Human Trafficking Commission. And some of you may know me. I used to work for the Governor's Crime Commission, and now I'm here with the Human Trafficking Commission. And I really look forward to working with all of you again, and to start working with new faces too. Thank you.
Great. Okay. And the other folks who they're on the webinar, however, they're not here with us. They're not presenting with us today. Christine Shaw Long is our executive director. I know lots of folks know Christine. Tara Minter is also on our team. Tara is the court management specialist. Nancy Hagan is the project analyst, and Nancy might be joining us at some point. And then Lauren Amato is our administrative secretary, who again, Lauren is monitoring the chat for us. And just again, as a reminder for y'all, the webinar is being, there was Lauren's face very quickly. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll post this on the Human Trafficking Commission website tomorrow or later this afternoon. Okay, next slide. So just a little bit about the commission. I'm not going to go through this in full detail because I know that we have a lot of questions about 1623. So this is about the commission. This is who we are. This is what our work involves. I put our website down at the bottom there. I certainly will say that if you have around human trafficking, if you have training needs, if you have technical assistance needs, if you have concerns about something you're seeing in your community, please certainly reach out to us. Also on our website, I want to say that we have commission meetings that are open to the public, and the commission meetings, the schedules are posted on our website, as well as the join link if you would ever like to join us for one of our commission meetings. And we love talking about our work. Certainly we can do that more, but again, I'd like to hop into what we're here talking about today. So next slide. So I will just start by saying again, we are talking about 1623. However, since many of you applied for grants through 1622, the facility improvement, either round 1 or round 2, we just wanted to give a little bit of an update. An email went out last Friday, so hopefully you received that about round 1. So an update on round 1, which is again, the facility improvement. I don't want to confuse folks, but we just wanted to get this information out while we're all together. So if you applied for round 1 of the facility improvement grant, the first payment to all grantees that were awarded these funds and have finalized their grant agreements will receive a paper check in the mail on the address that you put on the substitute W-9 form. We are hoping that this will be completed the first week of November, and then the approved agencies will receive your paper check the second week of November. I also just want to recognize, I know that y'all have been waiting. We've been getting a lot of emails about this. We're doing the very best we can to move this process along. For round 2, the round 2 of 1622, that we are planning to deposit that via direct deposit. And when we have more information about that, we will certainly send out another email. And if y'all have more specific questions or specific to your funding or your project, please email Roxana or I, and I'll put our emails in the chat, and it's also at the end of the slides. Okay, next slide, please. And then just a little kind of a brief agenda, and then I'm going to turn it over to Roxana. This is what we're going to cover today. Roxana is going to talk about the funding formula for 1623. I'll walk us through the review of the application process. Roxana will very quickly talk about disbursement. I will take about 30 seconds and talk about reporting and technical assistance, and then we'll stop the webinar and we'll go to the Q&A. So again, before I turn it over to Roxana, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat and we will get back to them later. And Lauren, is there something?
Ask if either Roxana, if you had the original invitation for the meeting, if you could post a call-in number in the chat. Some people are still having trouble hearing.
Okay. Yep, I will work on that while Roxana gets going.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Hey everyone, I don't think anyone is speaking or presenting right now. But if you can hear me, or really, if you can hear me, good. If you can't hear me, then that's the problem. But
Okay, I think it was me. I forgot to hit unmute. So let's start all over again. Okay, like I was saying, for the presentation.
Yeah. Okay, y'all, we are figuring out the audio issues and I am terribly sorry. It appears to be on my end. So just give us, I'm terribly sorry. Give us 2 seconds while we figure this out. Okay, you know, that's the neat thing about technology. That's the neat thing about technology. Are you muted?
I've already muted the computer.
Okay. Okay, we think we have it figured out. Our apologies, y'all. We just had to readjust a little bit on our end. Roxanne has got the content up. And let's try this again.
Can you guys hear me? Yes, okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
Well, let's start again. The section, we're gonna be talking today about the formula that was used for section 1623. The economic assistance funds for organizations that provide services to victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. These funds were appropriated from the State Federal Recovery Fund to the Administrative Office of the Courts and the Human Trafficking Commission. The total funds allocated for this grant is $15 million. These funds are non-recurring funds for fiscal year 2021-2022. They shall be used to reduce the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on organizations that provide domestic violence, sexual assault services across the state of North Carolina. The Human Trafficking Commission is in charge of allocating funds to eligible agencies and these agencies have been divided. The funds have been divided into 2 pots of money. One will provide $7.5 million to domestic violence agencies across the state. These funds will be distributed in equal amounts to eligible agencies as provided by the general statute. The second pot of money will provide $7.5 million to sexual assault programs and organizations across the state to eligible agencies based on the formula provided by the general statute. Agencies providing domestic violence services across the state will receive $7.5 million. Eligible recipients should receive an equal amount according to General Statute 50B-9B. Each grant recipient shall receive the same amount. To be eligible to receive these funds under this section, a domestic violence center must meet the following requirements. Agencies must have been in operation on the preceding July 1st and continue to be in operation, meaning July 1st, 2021. The agency must offer all of the following services: have a hotline, transportation services, community education programs, daytime services, and call forwarding during the night. And it must be a nonprofit corporation or local governmental entity. The funding for section 1623, section 1 has been divided amongst 78 eligible agencies. Out of those, 17 have been identified as standalone domestic violence agencies and 61 as dual agencies, meaning that they provide both domestic violence and sexual assault services. Each of these agencies can apply for up to $86,540. Agencies providing sexual assault services across the state can apply for $7.5 million. Not the agencies, the total amount. Eligible recipients should receive grants pursuant to General Statute 143B-39421. Eligible recipients should receive an amount based on the formula provided by this statute. The funds shall be administered by the Department of Administration and the North Carolina Council for Women in Youth Involvement. The funds must be used to make grants to centers for victims of for centers to provide services to victims of sexual assault or rape crisis. In this case, the funds will be administered by the Human Trafficking Commission in coordination with the North Carolina Council for Women in Youth Involvement in accordance with the general statute. To be eligible to receive funds under this section, a sexual assault or rape crisis center shall meet the following requirements. Agencies must have been in operation on the preceding July 1st and continue to be in operation, as I stated before, meaning July 1st, 2021. The agency must offer all of the following services: a hotline service, transportation services, community education programs, daytime services, and call forwarding during the night. Be a nonprofit organization or local government entity. Have a mission statement that clearly specifies rape crisis services are provided. Act in support of victims of rape or sexual assault. Ensure that victims' interests are represented in law enforcement and legal proceedings. Ensure that support and referral services are provided in medical and community settings. The formula provided in the general statute states that these funds, the funds appropriated must be distributed in 2 shares. 1 to sexual assault or rape crisis centers that only provide rape crisis or sexual assault services. The agencies will receive an equal share of 35% of the funds. Agencies who provide services to sexual assault or rape crisis services and domestic violence services shall receive an equal share of the remaining 65% of these funds. The funding breakdown. The funding for this section has been divided among 71 eligible agencies. Out of those, 10 have been identified as standalone sexual assault agencies and will receive 35% of the funds and can apply for up to $236,250. The remaining 61 agencies are classified as dual agencies, meaning that they provide both domestic violence and sexual assault services and can apply for up to $71,930. The 15 million non-recurring funds awarded include a 10% administration cost, meaning that 10% has been reduced from each pot of money and the remaining will be awarded to the eligible agencies. To summarize, there are 88 eligible certified agencies, 17 standalone domestic violence agencies, 61 dual domestic violence and sexual assault agencies, and 10 standalone sexual assault agencies. To apply for these grants, agencies must be approved by the North Carolina Council for Women in Youth Involvement as providers of these services. This graphic will show you which agencies can apply for these funds based on the services provided. So I'm going to leave that there for a minute so you guys can take a look at it. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact Kristen or I. And I will turn it over to Kristen in a few seconds. Thank you.
Okay, y'all, we're going to leave this up just a little bit longer as I slowly start to transition. I'm going to turn my video back on as we slowly start to transition into the next section. Because I just want to acknowledge that most of the questions that we've received so far have been about the funding. What do we apply for? And so we just want to leave this visual up, and now is a great time. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat. Again, Lauren is monitoring that, and we'll answer those questions at the end. Okay. Thank you for that, Roxana, and thank you all for kind of rocking with us while we figured out the audio issues. Okay, so let's talk about the review of the application process. So y'all should have received from us, from the Human Trafficking Commission, an email that was sent out last Wednesday about 1623. If you did not receive the email, the grant application is also on our website, and I have that linked on the next slide. So, okay, next slide, please, Roxana. Okay, so again, the application went out last Wednesday. And for those of you who applied in 1622, the process has changed just a little bit. So I'd like to walk through that and highlight some of the differences. So the biggest thing with this, and I cannot stress this information enough, is that completed applications are due via email on Wednesday, November 30th at 5 p.m. And per our guidance from the commission, that is a hard deadline. That 5 p.m. is a hard deadline. So here's where it's a little bit different from 1622. So with 1622, y'all submitted your applications, many of you, to a Gmail address that we had created. For this round, we have now created this NCHTC, for North Carolina Human Trafficking Commission, at nccourts.org email. So that's the email that the application came out from last week. So please, 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 I'm going to say please a couple more times with this, email us your completed applications by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, November 30th to that email address, that nchtc@nccourts.org email address. Please do not use the Gmail address that y'all used to submit for 1622. And please also do not email Roxana and I your applications. We will not be held responsible for applications that are either sent in pieces to us or applications that are sent to our personal email addresses. Please use this email address. And again, there's the link where if you did not receive that email, there's the link for where all of the grants, the full RFP, as well as all the documents are listed. I will also say that I know we heard from a couple of folks, there were a couple of issues with the, I think I'm gonna create a word here, but the fillability, the fill-in feature of the forms that were created last week. We've done our best to remedy that, and we've updated the website, and Roxana is also going to update the zip file so that all of the forms will be fillable. Okay, so back to the application process. So the other thing is, once we have received all of your information, Roxanne and I will review it, check to make sure everything's there, that everything's signed and dated and things are filled out properly. If things are missing or if there are corrections or revisions, you have 5 days from, and we'll email you that. So five days from the receipt of our email to correct and resubmit any revisions you may have. Okay, next slide, please. So Roxana really went into this in tremendous detail. So I'm not going to review this again. I'm also want to be very kind of mindful of the time. So I do not want to review this again, but this is again, just the piece about the organizations who are eligible for 1623 are the organizations that are funded through the North Carolina Council for Women as the DVSA or dual organization in that county or in that area. You have to be currently funded under the North Carolina Council for Women and Youth Involvement. And certainly, and I've had a couple of folks email questions about if they're not or not being sure about that. If you're not sure, please contact your region rep. And the region reps are listed on the North Carolina Council for Women and Youth Involvement's website. Okay, so now the actual grant itself. Thank you, Roxana. And I just want to start off this section by saying the bold piece that's at the end of the slide here, that I know we are asking a lot of information from folks. I know that this can be a little tedious, especially if you've already applied for round 1 and round 2. Thank you for your commitment to submitting a completed application. So I just want to stress that with all of these things that we're about to go through, please make sure it's fully completed, that it's signed, and that it's dated. So what are we asking for? And so again, this is in the zip file, this is in the email, this is on our website. So the cover sheet, which was provided, the scope of work and the budget. It also needs to be signed, which was provided. If you need additional space, you can add a supplemental budget. Other things we're asking for, the conflict of interest policy, which was also provided. And at any point, if you all have questions about this, please jump in the chat. If you want more detailed explanation, please feel free to email Roxana or myself. Other things we're asking for, the sworn statement of no overdue tax debt. It has to be certified and it has to be on agency letterhead. The North Carolina substitute W-9 form and the vendor electronic payment form. And then a written certification about this piece here about receiving 80% or more of your gross revenues from federal grants. That was a form that was also provided in the packet. And then the last thing we're asking for is a copy of your SAMS registration with your UEI number. And I've had a couple of emails about that. Again, if folks are confused about that, please email Roxana or I. Oh, yes, and I should also mention that this grant period, so these funds can be used retroactively, applied back to July 1 of 2021. And then the end of this pool of funding will be June 30th, 2024. So let me just say that again, because I did skip that before when we were talking about it, that this pot of money, you can revert it back, apply it back, backdate it to July 1, 2021, and it applies through June 30th, 2024. Okay. And I'll just pause for a couple of seconds before I hand it over to Roxana so that if anyone has questions around the application process, you can put that in the chat. And again, a reminder, please have it completed, signed, dated, and emailed to that HTC at NC Court's email address by November 30th at 5 p.m. And certainly I should say, if folks submit ahead of time, if you're ready to go and you submit ahead of time, Roxana and I can start reviewing those applications when you submit them. Right, and I will turn it over to Roxana to talk about disbursement.
So the disbursement process, the funds will be dispersed to the qualifying agencies on a quarterly basis. A quarterly expense report is required to be completed and included. The quarterly expense report will, you have to submit it on a quarterly basis, and you need to include supporting documentation with that expense report, meaning that it will include anything that was associated, anything that was expensed during the quarterly report. Once that expense report has been submitted, we will submit a form requesting the draw for the following payment for the following quarter payment. And if you need any additional money, or let's say that the funds that were dispersed during the specific quarter are not enough, and you need additional funding to cover that expenses for that coming quarter, you can just complete a form that we will provide to you requesting additional funding, an additional draw. You just got to make sure that the amount is a reasonable amount and that you have a reasonable justification for requesting the additional draw. And I will turn it over to Kristen for the reporting and technical assistance.
Okay. So with the reporting and the technical assistance, and in full transparency, y'all, you'll see on the slides, I'm just going to refer a lot in this to, please refer back to the terms and conditions. So the big part with reporting and technical assistance. So certainly with technical assistance, when you've received the funds, if you have, this isn't necessarily TA, but if you have questions about, can we use it on this? Can we use it on this? Please email, call, whatever, contact Roxana or I. we're very happy to talk that out with you. And we'd rather talk that out in advance ahead of time than have y'all purchase something with these funds that then's not allowable. And then we have to, work to remedy that. So we'd much rather have these conversations with you ahead of time. So if you have any questions about if this is allowed or if this isn't allowed, please contact us. So the other bits about reporting in TA, you can next slide. And a lot of this is in the RFP. Agencies will be subject to monitoring, compliance, periodic reporting requirements as provided by state and federal law and set forth in the terms and conditions. And I do want to note here, y'all, just because I know that lots of folks on the call are very familiar with GCC funding. This is a brand new funding stream. This is a brand new office. So this money here is part of the ARPA, the American Recovery Pandemic Act. So it's ARPA funding. So it's not our kind of traditional VAWA-VOCA funding that a lot of us are used to. So it's ARPA funding, a brand new pool of funding. And the funding goes through NC Pro, the North Carolina Pandemic Relief Office. So I just wanted to say all that because this might be, a lot of it will be similar to what folks are used to with GCC, and a lot of it might be a little bit different. And for the information that's different, that's probably why it's a new funding stream and with a new office. And the money originates from the Department of Treasury. So it is a little different. So just to name that. Sorry, y'all, back on track. So more about reporting. Agencies must submit a final report regarding project completion no later than 60 days following the end of the performance period. And for more specific information on that, please refer back to the terms and conditions. And then just kind of a general, and Roxana had already talked about this, and y'all are very familiar with this with your GCC funding. Agencies must be prepared to track, report on, document specific outcomes, benefits, and expenditures. And again, please refer to the terms and conditions there. So we were gonna, next slide, please. So put up, next slide. So put up our contact information, because I know Roxana and I keep saying, contact us, please email us, please call us. Here's how you can do that. Again, if you have specific questions about this or want to talk more specifically about, your ideas or your projects, please contact us. Last slide. And I also just wanted to acknowledge, and after this, we'll stop the recording and go into the chat. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank you all for taking time out of your day today. I know that our call is mostly executive directors, and I know that being an executive director of a 24/7 crisis serving agency means you are very busy. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And again, if you have questions, let us know. Also, in full transparency, if we find that even after this webinar, we're getting a lot of the similar questions, we can do another one, or we could have more of a informal Q&A call. So whatever folks need, we will adjust and meet your needs. And again, I just wanted to say thank you for your work and commitment to human trafficking victim survivors, to sexual assault victim survivors, to domestic violence victim survivors. Your work is very important. It makes a huge difference. In many cases, we know it's life-saving and it's valuable and it's needed. And I just wanted to say that and say thank you for joining us. So what I'm going to do is stop the recording piece, and then we can go into the chat and take questions. So just give me 1 second here.